Welcome back to Bulletproof Mindset, your go-to podcast for health, fitness, and entertainment. And today we are talking about muscle memory. Why is this an important episode to do? Well, this episode is for those of you out there who have been pretty consistent with your fitness goals over the last couple of years, maybe the last decade, but you feel yourself in a bit of a rut. And there's usually a mental block that's stopping you from getting back to it. And a lot of it has to do with the muscle memory information. So if you don't know what muscle memory is basically your body's ability to regain the progress that you've once made. And it's a vital component that more people should know about to help them get back on track. Now, one of the biggest pillars, one of the biggest things that people stop themselves or think to themselves when they fall off their fitness journey is, man, I put in so much work to get that progress. I don't know if I'm prepared to put that work in again. And typically this is someone who's been maybe working out consistently for 5 years. It might be a 12-week program that you've done. It might be a 6-month program. Whatever it is, whatever the time duration is, no matter how long you've had away from that, your body has the ability to store some of that experience, the information, and more importantly, the muscle that is gained there as well. So whether you've fallen off the gym for 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, it doesn't matter for the duration. Obviously, the longer the duration, the different timings and how quick this comes back. But take a bit of hope and a bit of inspiration that when you start to get back into a couple of workouts and that sort of thing, you can see those results back a lot quicker. So let's say, for talking sake, it took you, 10 weeks to build or see progress that you wanted to see. It's not going to take those 10 weeks again. In fact, a lot of research says it will take, on average, between 4 and 8 weeks, depending on the progress that you're looking to seek. And this isn't about being shredded and all that sort of stuff. That's a whole different conversation. But the whole, feeling good in your skin, feeling confident, feeling that your joints don't hurt, feeling strong and feeling your muscles, this is part of this conversation. So a nice little analogy to think about is that time where you do that deep clean on your house, right? So we've all experienced that. We got the house from top to bottom. It takes us hours and hours, usually a whole day of gutting the house. And you think to yourself, man, that took a lot of time. But the house, fast forward a couple of weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, the house starts to get a bit dirty again. But you don't need to put the same level of effort in to regain or get the reward of that quote-unquote cleaner household. It's a bit of tidy up here and there. And that's a nice little way to think about what is your body doing through those experiences and through that memory of the learning a squat or building strength and all that sort of stuff. So just remember, you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience, and your body remembers more than what you think. So let's get into this episode. One of the first pillars I want to start with is, why do people fall off in the first place? What is the reason as to why? Well, first things first, it's a normal thing, right? That even your highly competitive bodybuilders, I guess, might be the exemption from this, but everyone has their low days. Everyone has their struggles. In fact, this was something when we had Andy Scott on the podcast, one of the top Scottish bodybuilders in the scene, and he talked about some of the rebounds that he had before going into a show, and that was him in season. Psychologically, we're all wired differently, but we all are affected through the devices and cruxes that's in our society, right? And it's just completely normal that something's going to creep up and it's going to throw your quote-unquote motivation or question your discipline, and sometimes you just fall off. One of the other ones is likely injuries. Injuries is another big one where you are getting in this consistent theme, and then something happens that takes you out that routine, and that alone, you need to take time off to rest or whatever. Another one is burnout. You're maybe doing too much and you're trying to make up for lost time. And then what ends up happening is you just fall off completely because you're putting in so much effort and you're like, I'm not seeing the results I wanted. And you just step away from it. Now, they're just some of many different reasons as to why someone may fall off, but it's ones that are all completely normal. Now, there is a bit in here where I was going to say, it's not because you're lazy, but there is a part in here that sometimes you have to have an honest conversation with yourself, and it's I just can't be bothered. And that can be a different conversation of understanding, right, what is the type of workouts that you're doing? What is the effort that's going into your fitness journey versus the reward that you're looking to get? Because sometimes, again, back into the burnout category, a lot of you guys out there are doing so much, double training days, triple training days, working out 15 times within a 7-day week and all that sort of stuff. It's just mental, right? So sometimes you have to pull back so that you can go forward. And the lazy ones, it's a funny one. I'm saying it in tongue in cheek, but sometimes it is. It's like I just can't be bothered, because the root, the why as to why you're working out isn't deep enough. You don't necessarily care about it as much as you think, because if you did, guess what? You would be showing up and applying different strategies on what would work for you. So the laziness isn't necessarily because you're lazy. It's just you're tired of putting in so much graft and not seeing the results that you were expecting to see. And this is why I love, and this is why I do these podcasts. This is why I create content around fitness, because there's so much information out there. It can be very contradictory when you're consuming, and one person says one message and another person says another message. At the end of the day, we're all very different. We're all unique in our own way, weird and wonderful way. And we need to figure out what is the right path for ourselves. So the struggle, the fall off, I guess, if you want to call it that, is completely normal to experience. However, what is one of the biggest challenges as to what stops someone going into it? Well, this is where we're going to have the most important conversation here. And that is, you're thinking of all the work, all the effort, all those meal preps, the cardio days, the workouts themselves, all the sacrificing, whatever it is that you had to do to get those fitness progress results. And you think to yourself, I don't know if I can go through that again. And to kind of make this a wee bit more relatable, at the start of the year when I ran that 100k around the track, once I had finished that, I genuinely said to myself, I don't think I could ever run again, because the pain, the scar of how long that took to do was just so, like, it was so vivid at the forefront of my mind. Well, this is what usually stops a lot of people getting back into fitness, because they think they have to do what they've done before. And I guess a side note here, most people end up doing what they've done before to get the weight off, and then find themselves in this trap where it's not working as well. That's all to do with like fad dieting and that sort of stuff. But today we're just talking about like building strength, getting that feeling of confidence back. You're not going to like get absolutely shredded again just because you've taken, or let's say you've taken a year off and you're expecting to get shredded again in those 10 weeks. So when it particularly comes around fat loss and looking a certain way, yes, things are going to be a little bit different this time round. But on the subject of muscle memory and the important role that plays within our body, the skill of the exercises that you've learned, the confidence that you get, the energy, the feeling in your joints, the feeling of just all-round strength, that comes back relatively quickly. So the mental battle usually comes down to this one factor, and that is that you need to climb that mountain again. But guess what? It's not like you're starting from the bottom. In a way, it's like you're climbing that mountain again, yes, but you get to start halfway up, or you have a robotic suit that helps you get up there quicker. Right, so let's talk about what is muscle memory. Like, what does it come down to? So there's a lot of research on this. Originally, the research was coming out and actually highlighting there's more of an important part that plays psychologically, should I say. And a nice way to kind of explain this is when you're learning the skill, when you're learning to ride a bike, for example, it seems like a real hard challenge to begin with. But once you get that ingrained into you, it becomes easier to pick up the bike and ride it. And one thing I like to think about is like when I'm away on holiday and I've not driven my car in ages, and then I come back from holiday, you jump into the car and you just pick up, and the metaphor is usually, it's just like riding a bike. You're able to pick that up, and that's where the skill and experience of learning how to squat, learning how to deadlift, learning how to move resistance through space and time, they stick with you. And this is your central nervous system adapting to those stressors or those responses that you expose them to on a weekly basis. And that's why repetition, there is general strength in repetition. So the neural part of this is your brain remembers how to move. It ingrains those movement patterns. That's why when you try and challenge like a different way of, like, if you write with your right hand, you try and write with your left, it's like, there's such a combatant signal because you've never written with your left, or you've written with your left not as often as you have with your right. Think of like a heavy snowstorm that's came through, and there's these, one car drives through, and then another car drives through, and then so many cars drive through, and you see the tracks on the road. That's like this memory imprinted in our brain. Every time you lift weights, every time you experience a workout, you're creating those snow tracks. And deep down, those snow tracks never really go away. So yes, when you take some time off, it's maybe a bit rusty when you get back to it, but you start to find your groove. You start to find that space in time where you're like, okay, this is actually getting a little bit easier. Now, when it comes to the muscle memory, the actual physical mass that you store in your body, there is a couple of things that need to happen. So we need to be hitting our protein intake, and there needs to be a strong signal there that requires the need for that muscle mass. So if you go 6 months without lifting weights, you're going to see this kind of deflated version of yourself, because it is expensive for your body to maintain muscle or have muscle on it. It requires more calories, it requires more nutrients. So in a world or in a state where you don't have a ton of nutrients in you, you're not hitting your protein goal, and you've got this expensive tissue in your body does one thing, and that goes, right, we don't need that on us because we get no signal to say that we require this much muscle mass. So let's break that down, let's pare it down, use it as energy, and then we won't need as many calories next time. And this is the whole balance of thermodynamics and the balance of calories in, calories out, and how that is converted to fat. But when you're resistance training, and the aim here is building strength, which ultimately builds muscle as well, your body stores new minuclei. Your body creates and stores new minuclei. And there's a lot of research that points to that. This doesn't just stick around for a couple of weeks after training. So in some cases, it can stick around for years. But what's important to take away from this is that muscle gained once upon a time, the memory, the existence of it being there in the first place is so ingrained into our central nervous system and our body's ability to remember that when we start lifting weights again, it's like a deflated balloon. It's like the balloon's been deflated, so the size of the balloon is reduced. That's like your body breaking down the muscle and doing away with it. But when you start lifting weights again, it's like that balloon's filling up. And actually, see, saying that out loud, I bet you there's a lot of you guys listening where you maybe took 2 weeks off the gym, you go on holiday and you're like, I just feel a bit gubbed, feel a bit flat. And you start lifting weights again, you're like, oh, I feel like my body's changed just after that one session. It's almost like someone's pumped you up. So the idea behind this whole part here is the body never truly gets rid of it completely, okay? Yes, it might not be as evident, or you might not be as shredded, but remember here, like shredded in the law of thermodynamics and all that sort of stuff, we're playing with the balance of fat storage. So sometimes if you've gained fat, it's kind of hard to see aesthetically what's actually happened there. And this isn't about getting back into your best aesthetic shape, right? This is to highlight the point to you guys and girls out there who are on your fitness journey. You've fallen off and you're like, I want to get back into it, but I really can't put that work in. Well, this is where this next part comes into play. So how fast can you expect progress to come back? Well, strength typically happens from session to session. You come back in, it's almost like being a newbie in the gym. You lift a weight, and okay, that weight is dramatically different from what you've lifted before. But you go in the next session, you're lifting a little bit more and a little bit more. You can expect to see the full rebound in about 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how long you've had off the gym. Muscle mass is usually about 4 to 6 weeks, and endurance within cardio is literally week on week. I really like the cardio one because it's like that first session you do is hard as fuck. Now, it doesn't matter how slow you run, how slow you move, but it feels super, super hard. However, the second session, it's almost like you're a new person and you've regained all that cardio experience because it's that bit better. The same sort of happens in the strength side of things, but obviously there's only so many times you can increase the weight. Arguably, when it comes to the endurance side of things, that happens a lot quicker. Now, confidence is probably the first thing that returns, because the energy or the feeling that you get, whether it's a placebo or whether it's actually doing anything, it happens, or it unlocks a part in your brain where you know you're doing something that's benefiting your body. So physically and emotionally and psychologically, you're going to feel better just because you know you've shown up to the workout. You take two people living the exact same lives, and the person said they were going to work out in the morning, but they didn't, and another person said they were going to work out in the morning and they did, then you can already guarantee who's going to feel better about themselves. It's not it's not that missing that workout is any different. That one person's quote unquote bad or unhealthy than the other person. Sometimes we need to miss workouts, but psychologically, we feel better when we know we said we've done something. And the confidence side of this is probably one of the most important pieces. Everything that we do is all to do with mindset. It's all to do with the psychological gains that we can make. The physical gains will come, but psychologically is the first thing that checks out. So when we're unpacking our fitness journey, this is some good news to like really think about. It's like, okay, so What happens if I've taken a year off? What happens if I've taken 6 months off? Well, lucky for us, this is where they've done some research on. So the Scandinavian Journal of Medicine and Science in 2016 ran an experiment where they took regularly consistent working out individuals, and for 10 weeks they detrained them. So they never lifted weights, they didn't exercise, they just got about their day-to-day life. They made sure they didn't have laborious jobs, so these were all office workers. And within those individuals, they never done any resistance training, no exercise whatsoever. And then at the end of the 10-week period, what they got them to do was go back into a very light to moderate workout program, and they saw their size, their strength, their endurance come back in as little as just 5 weeks. Now, arguably 10 weeks may seem like a long time, but again, one of the variables which is hard to control here is how long you've been working out, because I think this is an important thing to factor in. The longer you've been working out, the stronger those snow tracks are. So it's like several cars, like if you look at the snow and one car goes over the road, you can kind of see it. 10 cars go over the road, it's like the ice is melted, the snow's away. So the more experience you can have, or the more exposure, the more reps, the more exercises, the more workouts you get under your belt over long periods of time, the stronger the comeback is, the better the comeback is in some cases. So yes, there's maybe a handful of you guys and girls out there who have fallen off and then got back on, and you're maybe only in your couple of years of lifting, but take a bit of pride that even if you jump back on, you're back in that consistency, you gain the results that you had before, you make a little bit more progress, and then you fall off again, then that's just like the stock market. Over long periods of time, what we want to see is this upward trend of building this experience into your central nervous system, into your memory, into the muscle memory, or this component that we're speaking about. So over long periods of time, you're trending upwards. And that's what this is really about. We want to make sure that we only give up, or we only mess this up if we give up completely. But one of the cool things about this is it may be taking you months, if not years, to build some of the progress that you got when it comes to your heavy lifts or your strength, or even just practicing a perfectly executed squat. And you can get this back within weeks of getting back into training. And that's a pretty cool thing that our bodies have built within us on a default setting almost. So as I said, the real problem isn't your muscles losing that ability to contract, to be strong, your central nervous system feeling weaker, the kind of confidence around it. It's more so the mind, right? The mind's going to talk you out this. You're going to feel shame. You might feel guilt. Everything feels heavier. You compare yourself to that version of you who is at their peak. And if you can just put all that aside for a couple of workouts, you will regain all that same feeling very, very fast. So if you're someone who's sitting and thinking about their comeback plan, what is the comeback blueprint? What would be some of the things to watch out for when you're getting back into it? Well, first things first, nice and obvious one, don't try and pick up where you left off. I think that's pretty obvious, but this is probably more so for the guys out there. Your ego, you need to squash it. I don't care what you've lifted before. Half it, then half it again. Because for whatever reason, it's like this macho-ness within us. We're like, yeah, I can still do that. That's why you see dads at sports days pulling all sorts of muscles. That's why I think they interviewed a bunch of men, right? And I think it was something like 85% of men think that they can fight, even though a large percentage of them have never fought in their life. It's also the same for any older man that still thinks they can be as fit and fast as they were in their teenage years when they played a variety of sports. So men, we are obnoxious and we overestimate our ability massively. So we don't want to lean into that. We want to take a better and a more realistic strategy when we get back into it. And for the purpose of building muscle, building strength, gaining confidence, making sure our joints feel good, making sure we feel good in our skin, training twice a week is more than enough for that. I would do full body routines because you get bigger bang for your buck. And it's almost like, in a way, it is like starting again. But in terms of the results and the progress that you'll see, that happens much, much quicker. So you get to do very little for a bigger reward than what you would before. Now, that would be my preference if I was coaching someone. But if you're still, again, we have to address what is one of the reasons as to why you're not working out. And a big part can be enjoyment. So if you prefer machines and you prefer doing body splits, use that as your way to ease back into it. Do half the sets of what you would do before. I would do 2-3 sets at a maximum. Work between a rep range that you enjoy. Again, for me, I would have someone working anywhere between 6 and 15 reps just to start out on, and hold that for 4 weeks and watch what happens in 4 weeks. I would say at least track where you're at, track your workouts. Don't track how you look in the mirror. Don't track the weight in the scales, because that's not necessarily what it's about. It's about building that consistency, building those bricks, building momentum, so that when you snowball into this next couple of phases of your training, you're like, right, okay, I'm back to where I was, right? What's the goals that I want to go after? Because that's another thing people don't realize. It's like, oh, I would love to do high rocks, but I used to be working out consistently. I'm not working out consistently now. Oh, what's the point? So if you've got a bit of momentum going into workout, it's various different workouts, and that 10K race comes up or the high rocks race comes up, you're going to have more confidence of throwing your flag in, like getting your hat in the ring on, in a way, because you have that confidence from the workouts that you've been doing. Skyscrapers weren't built within a day. They're built one brick at a time. And that is a nice little way to think about this point here. You don't need the best program. You don't need to try and make up for lost time. You just need to show up and do what you can. And then the next day, do what you can. And sometimes you might overdo it. Pull back, push forward, find the sweet spot on what works for you. You're not aiming for perfection. You're aiming for momentum. And that is what the real comeback plan looks like. So some final words before we close off this episode. The question isn't, can you get those results before? The question is, are you willing to start again? That's all you need to do. Just willing to start. It doesn't matter what it is that you're going to start with. You can start with a brisk walk, a run, a cycle, 10 push-ups. You just need to start. As I said earlier, it's about adding one brick at a time. So find out what that brick looks like for you. And trust me, watch how quickly those results come back. So as always, I have been your host, Dale Crosser. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this one. Share it with a friend. Let me know if you've got any struggles that you're struggling with when it comes to your own workout plan, any questions you might have of getting back to it. And yeah, let's make this year your healthiest and strongest year to date. If you enjoyed the episode, one of the best ways you can support me is by leaving a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or subscribing on YouTube. You can do all three. That would actually help me out better. But yeah, that's enough from me today. We've got some exciting things happening over the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. We got a new advanced workout program coming on the horizon. So for those of you who followed the old program and are coming up to the end, this one is going to be one that you won't want to miss. Now, with that being said, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you guys on the next one.